So this discussion goes to page 34. Strategies and tactics. Now, let me read the quote in full before I go off on my own little obscene rant about this. And this obscene rant I sort of specifically tailor specifically to you, James Holston, because we were talking very intimately about this, and I suggested that I had my own little answers and interpretations, and let me maybe platform off of this discussion into those. Strategies and tactics. Unrecognized producers, poets of their own affairs, trailblazers in the jungles of the functionalist rationality, consumers produce something resembling the liens de air described by Deligny. They trace indeterminate trajectories that are apparently meaningless since they do not cohere with the constructed, written, and prefabricated space through which they move. They are sentences that remain unpredictable within the space ordered by the organizing technique of systems, although they use as their material the vocabularies of established languages, those of television, newspapers, the supermarket, or city planning. Although they remain within the framework of prescribed syntaxes, the temporal modes of schedules, paradigmatic organizations of places, etc., these traverses remain heterogeneous to the systems they infiltrate, and in which they sketch out the guileful ruses of different interests and desires. They circulate, come and go, overflow, and drift over in an imposed terrain, like the snowy waves of the sea, slipping in among the rocks and defiles of a unestablished order. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful writing. But simply, I mean, Certeau cannot simply be reduced to beautiful. There is something very, very heady, theoretical about what is going on here, and I'd like to liken this to the internet. And I'd like to liken this specifically to what happens when the one-on-one encounter becomes digitalized, and when the space between bodies, the proximity between you and everyone you know at any time no longer becomes a question, becomes in the new virtual environment an obsolete concern, because now, to an ever greater degree, it is irrelevant. And here's my answer to this. I've been thinking about this. We have now chat roulette. And now, I don't know if you've ever used chat roulette, but it is random strangers, serialized, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, with all these people with these half-strange expressions sandwiched between like mini subversions of stuffed animals and tits and disembodied cocks, and genitals are becoming interpersonal. Masturbating is becoming interpersonal events. The status update and the tweet, similar and yet very different. I like Jon Stewart's analogy about like the internet. It's like, you know, the same ingredients in different proportions. The status update and the tweet, they're more tied to a name, so therefore less given to lasciviousness. But we have now them with them at our 24/7 disposal. Our ability to translate our day-to-day plateaus that might otherwise vanish and recede into the thin nothing of the private sphere are always their ability to make ourselves anytime pure digital public spectacle of whatever, of boredom, of dismay, love, hatred, pleasure, displeasure, drinking lemonade in the shade, getting blazed with the graying of pilgrims. It's what my newsfeed most recently reads 4 minutes ago. All of these things are becoming now interpersonal one-to-one. And that is, I think, one these trailblazers in the jungles of functionalist rationality, consuming something that resembles a product, but isn't really a product at all. It's merely tools, and tools that attain signification only once they're used. It's a very strange prophecy. You can read it. You can read that into Certeau. It's sort of a advanced interpretive impressionistic reading, I will have to say. But all of these things now, I believe, are becoming interpersonal one-to-one, and I think that is his prophecy. You become periodical. And I think that the more depth, the more funny, the more clever that you are at becoming digital, which is to say, through others, becoming something that both is and is not you. Well, that more and more, whether you exist in the lives of others, is becoming quantified by this. Quantified by your ability at translating yourself into a little you with quotes around it. I like a quote by DeLillo. He says, whoever controls your eyeballs controls the world, and I think that's becoming doubly true. We're now entering this sort of double consciousness within the present moment. How to translate what I'm doing right now, feeling, experiencing, sensate body. What is my sensate body doing in 140 characters? That's an incredible interpolation into language. And it's also kind of a deadening one, if you can't really do it. It requires fluency in doing this in order to exist right now in our sphere. And I think that the cost of doing poorly is that we are in the advent now of this age of a reciprocal self-identity. One that he offers a here is how I am defining myself in relation to you, that solicits your feedback. That my experience of, drinking lemonade, getting stoned, can be liked by you in a click. Observed by all, you receive comments on it, you reply to comments, and wonder, who's reading this? Is my professor reading this? Is that guy that I have a crush on reading this? It's all this open question mark. Never really will you know the answer unless you ask, and that already is some sort of like violent intrusion. It's very, very strange. But I think that the main thesis to this, and I think it's a thesis that does this chapter in all of its complexity a fairly good synopsizing effect, is that your pleasure is complete at the moment it becomes discourse. And I think even that we may say that it may be contingent on it becoming discourse. And that's sort of my argument in line with Certeau's. And my headphones are falling off.